What's up, guys? It's JZNES back again with another video. Today we're here to talk about some D on Sega Saturn. Not really. I'm actually talking about the Steam version, but also the Sega Saturn version. That's why I have this guy here. D was actually one of the first games that I kind of was really interested in the Sega Saturn library there. It also came out on PlayStation 1. I actually saw that version. I used to hang out at this place in town here called the Wormhole, which was like this little hangout place for video gamers and whatnot. You know, we played card games and stuff there too, like Yu-Gi-Oh! And shit. But I used to hang out there a lot, and they actually had a copy of D on PS1 there, just like sitting there for the longest time. And I remember a kid that I knew played it for a bit, so that was kind of interesting. I have, of course, the Sega Saturn version here of D. So, yeah. And then on the inside there, it's 2 discs. I guess I don't have the, or do I have the manual? Yeah, the manual's, well, it's obviously the cover. That's how that shit used to work. But it's like you gotta, oh yeah, you do that, okay. And then you just slip it out of there or whatever. But, so yeah, D, oh, actually, it's supposed to go in there like that. Okay, so that makes sense. But yeah, 2 discs. The PlayStation version actually had 3 discs. So, it's kind of, a hard game to review. There's not a lot to say without spoiling a lot of things, and a lot of things out of context don't really make a lot of sense. The game is really good at doing sort of the atmospheric horror sort of thing, and I think that's just one of the strongest suits there, is its atmospheric horror. Now, I first heard about this game through the HVGN, you know, when he was Happy Video Game Nerd, not Stop Skeletons from Fighting. Well, technically I'd heard about it from the Wormhole days, but I didn't remember that's what this game was. I just remember that was some horror game, like, on PlayStation or whatever. I didn't really, like, know that this was that game. So, you know, and I don't even remember that much of it back then. But yeah, the HVGN, he talked about it. By the way, also, this is the soundtrack, but it's like not the soundtrack because it's just like the first track and then like the 2 ending tracks. But there's stuff in the middle, I swear. There are other tracks to this game. And so this is on the only anything soundtrack of D related is on the Warp official YouTube channel, which like has like 144 subscribers or some shit. 145 once this guy subscribes, which is like not that many, which is kind of crazy. But anyway, they have this as the 1 through 3 tracks, which is, and then they have 4 through 99, it says, but all it is 6 seconds of silence for each track is what the description says. So the whole video is just silence, basically. Which is stupid because there's other tracks in the game, but that's like one of the, I guess that's the joke of it or whatever. So I don't know. I've never like heard those tracks on YouTube. I've only ever heard them in the game. I swear there's little tracks in the game there, so it is kind of a quiet game other than the sound effects and whatnot, which are also really well done. You gotta, the other thing you gotta put in context is this game came out in '95, so and just before Toy Story, if I remember correctly, because we looked this up before, and the only reason that's relevant, why I'm bringing up Toy Story at all, well, I love Toy Story for one thing, but this was the first fully CG video game, which is crazy, you know? That's such a landmark in video games, whereas Toy Story was the first fully CG movie. Now, obviously, that holds up a little bit better in terms of things, but this is a very important game for video games, and it's still very obscure today, and nobody really talks about it outside of, like, HVGN and whatnot. And there are two. I should have brought out I have Enemy Zero sitting over there in the backlog. Another game that I really need to play. But before I did that, I really wanted to review D. So maybe Enemy Zero will be next Halloween or something. But yeah, you know, I did the Silent Hill games, and it's like, what am I gonna do? Silent Hill 4? Like, no. So like, I don't know. I thought D, that's a nice short game. I mean, it's a nice short letter. It's one letter game, right? D. That's it. You know, but it is short. You literally cannot spend more than 2 hours on this game. You spend more than 2 hours on this game, and well, you can't do that. You get to the 2 hour mark in this game, and you get a game over because that's within the lore of the game, is that you only have these 2 hours to like go into this portal to like go and figure out what's up with your dad who murdered a bunch of people, which is in the intro of the game, so that's not really a spoiler. But it's kind of figuring out all about that, and then unraveling the mystery of like what his deal is and why he murdered all these people and whatnot, and kind of your history as well as Laura. You're the protagonist, Laura, and what all of that is. And it's a pretty interesting like little story for this really like tiny contained game, you know? So I definitely think that the brevity helps the game a lot. And the game is pretty easy once you know what you're doing and how to go through it, but figuring out the solutions to the puzzles, it's like a puzzle horror game. Figuring out the solutions to the puzzles the first time around is the challenging part, and figuring out just kind of where you have to go. You're kind of locked onto a grid, but you get to certain stops, you'll walk and you'll hit forward, and the character will walk to a certain point, and then you can kind of look around and interact with the different directions that there are there. So you're kind of on a grid though, but that's kind of the interesting thing about the game, is kind of trying to figure out where in the room you can go, and then how you can interact with that area to help you get an item, or like, you know, just solve a puzzle to continue forward on the game. And there's like really 3 main areas in the game, maybe like 4, like 4 or so main areas in the game. You start off in this sort of like dining room area, which branches off into a few different rooms. It's got like this locked room, and then you go upstairs, and there's like, I mean, I'm not gonna describe the whole thing, but then you go upstairs, and there's a good scare when you open one of the doors, and then there's like, oh god damn it! See, now the soundtrack has already run out, and it's pushing me on to something about Super Smash Brothers. So we're not gonna listen to that. But anyway, so see, I didn't have a contingency for when we get done with the soundtrack, so I didn't know how long I was gonna go on. I didn't know how much I had to say about this game. So let's go to an old classic of horror soundtracks there. All right, so D. So you go up to this room, and one of the first puzzles. It is a puzzle. There's like this cabinet with these 5 drawers, and you have to figure out like which ones to pull in order to get this crank that you use downstairs to like stop a thing from putting spikes in this wall from like killing you, basically. Which you can't even die in the game. The only way you can die is if you run out the 2 hours, which I've only ever really done once, because there's an annoying night section later on. And on the Sega Saturn, the button input prompts, I never would let them show up, because I always just thought like, hey, I need to just press that before they showed up. I didn't know there were prompts. I didn't know there were little button things that told you like when to press the button. And I do think that there was sometimes a little bit of lag because of the disc loading or something. So it wasn't always perfect on that version. But the Steam version eliminates all of that and pretty much takes care of all of the problems of the game. The game looks a lot nicer on Steam too. Obviously I'm running a Sega Saturn thing. There's a lot of ways to make that look a little bit better, but like Steam, cleaned the whole thing up. It just looks great. It's like $10 on Steam. Like, or, I don't think it's that much. I think it's like $4 on Steam or something. It's like ridiculously lowly priced, and that's why I was like, fuck, D for like, you know, like $5 or $4 or whatever the fuck it was. I'm like, I'm gonna get that, and especially because it's on Steam. I didn't even know it was on Steam until like a few months ago. So it's cool, man. It's definitely worth it. I know you don't, you just like, there's 2 hours of gameplay in there, but it's worth replaying sometimes and having that experience again and just seeing how you can do it faster or like better, like finding all the little secrets. There's these little bugs throughout the game that like show you cutscenes of this past memory thing, so you kind of are regaining your memory there. And those are really cool because they kind of paint a story of your character too, and like what happened, and it all kind of leads up to the thing that is revealed at the end of the game there, which is pretty cool. I don't want to spoil all that in case you guys want to play the game. It's worth playing. It's only 2 hours long, like at most, so like why would you not play it, you know? And sometimes the puzzles can be a little tricky or obscure, but there's only really a few puzzles in the entire game, so really just finding the stuff is a puzzle in itself, or figuring out kind of where you need to go and what you need to do. So at most, you're going to probably have to replay this game like once or twice, you know, and then what does that mean? Like 6 hours of gameplay or whatever. That's even still short. So I definitely recommend investing the time to master the game or just figure out the game. You might even get it on your first playthrough. I'll save you some time and just tell you that watch out for the night button prompts, inputs, and that'll help you out a lot. The rest of the game is pretty straightforward, especially when you know what you're doing. There's really not a lot that's gonna trip you up. If you want a really easy experience, just follow like a walkthrough or something. The only thing that I would say is like kind of tricky, and you would figure it out pretty fast, but there's a room where you spin this little dial, and there's like 10 rooms in there, and for each spin you do, it'll like move that many rooms or whatnot. And a lot of them are just like blank walls, but there's a nice little like indicator in most walkthroughs, like what space is what, and I was just like having that on hand to kind of fastly go through that, because that's the room that would probably take the most time to just kind of cycle through naturally and like figure out which room's which without like, you know, and you could write that down or like memorize that or something too. That's like totally doable. So not terribly like too obscure or hard to figure out. I'm sure, you know, I was a stupid kid when I first played this game. It's a stupid kid. It wasn't that long ago, but I was a lot like less good at video games back then. I had a lot smaller of a collection, and I had played a lot less games. It's kind of funny because it was only like, shit, it was like probably 8 or 9, or like 6, 7, 8 years ago though. So it's like, yeah, a lot of time has passed, but I played a lot of games since then. So I've gotten a lot of better at games and figuring out what games want me to do or whatnot. So, and also I've played this game a few times, just kind of show with my friends and whatnot. So, it was weird because it was like the first time I was using a keyboard. So, I kind of like just pressed a lot of different buttons to find out which the inventory button was. And obviously it's I for inventory. Like that makes a lot of sense, right? So obviously that's good. I mean, I for inventory, space bars to interact with everything. Enter is like your start key. You have to press like at the beginning, like on the title screen. I don't think you use it for anything else. And then it uses the arrow keys, even though the manual says that it uses the WASD controls or whatever. So don't listen to the manual. Who reads the manual anyway, right? But so yeah, that's the control setup in case you play it on Steam. Real simple shit. It's basically like a point and click adventure. If a point and click adventure was just on rails where you had to like hit the key, like I don't know, but graphically it looks really impressive for 95, and especially when it's not like really grainy on a Sega Saturn or whatever, it looks really fantastic there. So yeah, very impressive looking game. sounding game. Atmosphere is very oppressive to the game. Um, and it has a pretty decent like story and that kind of stuff. The voice acting is questionable, but it's not the worst ever. It's fine. It's totally like good. The only person who talks in the whole game is your father, and he'll just stop you at random points, and he'll be like, like don't come any farther, like you don't want to see what I've become and all this stuff. So, um, he tries to stop you, and you hear like Laura gasp and stuff a few times, and but she never really says anything, and that's good. The only one complaint I have with any of that is the animation of the talking thing. I think what they should have done is just kept it to where there was no animation of them talking, the father talking at all, because it looks really bad. It doesn't match anything. It's just him opening and closing his mouth at random while the character speaks. There's literally no reason you needed to do that. All of the other animations in the game look really good. That's like the one glaring flaw with any of it is that because they didn't put any effort into it. Which just sucks because it's like if they just kept his mouth closed, you're in a weird ethereal place anyway. It's like, what do I know? Maybe he's telepathically communicating with me. What does it matter? Like, Metal Gear Solid, they don't, move their mouths or whatever. It's fine. It looks a lot better. Like, everyone always gives Sonic Adventure shit for that. So, like when Metal Gear Solid didn't do it, that was a good thing, right? That was good. So, this game could have, like, done that as well, and that would have probably been good. Or like Silent Hill. Silent Hill didn't move the mouths and whatnot, which was good. When they did do it in the later games, it looked kind of awkward for quite a while there. So like, yeah. So like, something to be said for simplicity in that regard. That's like the one little nitpick that I have at all, and it was only distracting in like the final scene because that's the only time he really does it. So, yeah. I mean, like other than that, like everything in the game is pretty cool. I like all the puzzles and and just how short it is, but like how kind of it's just this really nice small and confined, really just well done simple package of horror game there, and there's a lot of good tension, a lot of good scares. Like the one with the mirror and the like I said the one where you open the door, and just a lot of stuff like that throughout the game. A lot of good puzzles, good replayability because if you want to see all the cutscenes with the little bugs, they're in random places every time you play the game, and like finding them all always isn't like really a thing. I think there's like 4 every playthrough, and I got 3 of them, so that's pretty cool. So yeah, I mean, it's just like it's a pretty good game overall, and I definitely recommend just checking it out because it's a unique experience. In the words of Derek Alexander, you never knew that the word unique started with a D. So go check out his review too. He talks a lot about the history of the game and Kenji Eno, who's dead now. He died like a few years ago or something, I think, or maybe it was before that. I don't know. He died a while ago, or at some point he did. So, but he was a real eccentric sort of man, and like Warp Games, who made the game, is a really interesting company, and like they were like I guess partnered with Acclaim to like publish this or something. So, because they're on the game too. But yeah, it's just a really cool like interesting game. One that not a lot of people talk about. I'm pretty sure that I put it in my top 100 games or whatever. So yeah, I'm pretty sure it made that list just because it's a pretty cool game there. And I really like it. I'm trying to let me see if I can find that actually. So yeah, just one of these cool games that like nobody really talks about, and I kind of had to show all my friends, back when I first played the game, because I was really excited about how cool it was, and how short it was. You could just run through them with it in like an hour or two, Yeah, I put it at 96, so it's pretty low on the top 100 games, but it still made the top 100 games, you know, like, because it's still a pretty cool and unique and good experience there. So, yeah, play, play D. Uh, D's nuts. And I'll give it a 9 out of 10. 9.5 out of 10. 9.8 out of 10. 9.8 out of 10. 9.9 out of 10. No, I'm just kidding. 9.8 out of 10. 2.2 off for the mouth flapping thing. Alright. Anyway, this has been JZNES saying keep it classic. Stick around for more reviews under games, and I'll see you guys in the next one. JZ